Okay guys, well as I said in the last video, I did want to actually just do an update in regards to the anomalies we're seeing with cold events and snow events, even though we have just actually moved into autumn in the Northern Hemisphere, which began on the 22nd of September. We're actually seeing cold anomalies happening all over the Northern Hemisphere. Now, anyone that's been following my videos over the years knows that we pay close attention to the Norse mythology, and that the Norse warned that before the Fimbulwinter, the mighty winter, we would experience brutally cold winters, and then we would experience the most brutal winter of all, which they called the Fimbulwinter or the mighty winter. And then that would actually signal that we would experience very violent events and a lot of conflict all around the planet between nations. And so we have been watching and observing these events over the years, and we have definitely seen winters becoming more cold and there being more cold events and more snow events recorded each year. And especially last year, we saw a lot of cold events and a lot of snow events. And so we're trying to use these events as a gauge for Fimbulwinter, because it's not an exact science. The ancients, our ancient ancestors, basically left us information in the form of allegory and stories and mythologies, and then it's up to us to try and unravel these stories and make sense of them, because this type of knowledge, esoteric knowledge, isn't for everybody. It is only for seekers who actually go and research into the knowledge and seek out the information and spend time trying to unlock the encoded knowledge that was left to us. And so when we do this, we start realizing that they were pretty much on point about everything, and they are definitely on point about us moving into a time where we're seeing more brutal winters in the Northern Hemisphere. And so now that I'm actually seeing these events happening in the Northern Hemisphere, starting just as we move into autumn, I think it's something we should pay attention to. So I did want to actually address this. I did want to bring your attention to this, because I really do want people to prepare. I don't want people to leave their security in the hands of government, because government are going to fail you, just as they are going to fail the people that have been left devastated by Hurricane Michael. Now, if you haven't seen this footage, then I suggest you click on this link that I will leave under the video and watch this unedited footage that goes for 8 minutes. And it just shows that this area has been absolutely annihilated by this hurricane. And so anybody that believes that they are going to get the help they require from the government is really actually in deep denial, because these people will be failed as the people of Puerto Rico have been failed. So I just did want to basically address the issue of aid going into the places that have been devastated by Hurricane Michael, because there is already complaints that people are not getting aid to them. The military should have been in there straight away. Within the next few days after this hurricane had basically destroyed all of this area, the military should have been in there doing food drops and medical supply drops with helicopters. And to say that they don't have the equipment or they don't have the ability to do this is just absolutely ludicrous when you understand the amount of money that gets pumped into the military industrial complex. There should have been at least 50 helicopters, 50 military helicopters, actually dropping aid into these areas and making sure that these people have food and water. Because what we're seeing now is people are actually looting the stores that manage to still have some of the food and water not damaged completely, and they're actually being called criminals because they're just trying to survive. These people are not looting because they just want to go in and get themselves a new TV from a store. They're going in and they're taking nappies, they're taking food, they're taking water, they're taking whatever they can use to survive, because the government are nowhere to be seen. The government are setting up in a car park somewhere, and Trump and his wife go down and do a bit of a PR stunt for the cameras, handing out a few bottles of water, handing out some sandwiches, but the real help is not making it to these people. And so we are actually seeing that there are reports on different smaller media outlets which are reporting that these people have seen no food and no actual help from FEMA in the few days after the hurricane. So they're actually going through these basic rubble that was once a house. So they're going and looking through all the rubble, trying to find food and water. And then there's reports now that they're looting. People are looting homes. People are looting shops. I mean, this is just where you see the media sensationalizing stories to get people worked up and people outraged, when in fact these people are just trying to survive because the government have let them down. The government are letting them down. The government will let them down. The government will do the least amount that they can get away with to help these people. They will be left to fend for themselves. This area will never be rebuilt. You can mark my words. I said it about Puerto Rico, and people were basically saying, no, it's not true. We'll send help to Puerto Rico. They're going to rebuild. Elon Musk is going to help them rebuild. And look at Puerto Rico now. They've still got blue tarps on their roofs. Their schools are all closing down. There is still no real help that has gone to the people of Puerto Rico. And that is because the government are not going to help people at this stage of the cycle, because they know what's coming. And if we do have this really brutal winter that I think we are going to have, because the signs are all pointing towards it, then these people can forget about getting any help. They need to get out of there. They need to go and make their lives somewhere else the best they can. And so if any Christians out there want thoughts and prayers to be sent to these people, then how about actually going and doing something worthwhile and helping these people out with housing until they can get themselves sorted out and rehomed, because there is nothing left for them where they are now. And you know, I'm seeing all these feel-good stories on the mainstream media now that trucks are full of donated goods and they're all going down there to help these people. You know what? Why do the citizens of America need to donate goods and supplies to help these people? Okay? Your president can pump $700 billion into the military-industrial complex, but then it's left up to you to actually help these people because they don't have supplies and there is no real help coming. You know, the reason that the government get away with what they do is because people do donate. Perhaps if people just said, you know what, as much as I want to help these people and donate, I'm actually going to rely on my government to do this, because this is why I pay my tax dollars. This is why I actually expect my government to use the military-industrial complex, to use these government agencies that we pay into to help Americans when needed. But instead, what people do is they love to feel good about themselves and brag about how they help everybody. So they'll actually just shoot themselves in the foot by continually propping up the government, instead of letting the government do the job that the government was supposed to do. I mean, the reason we have governments, the reason we gave our power to the government, was because they promised us that they would look after us. So this is looking after us, apparently. We have to get all the donations together and we have to go down there and help these people out, because the government, who funds wars all around the world, who basically just uses taxpayer money to enrich themselves, to prop up their own self-interests, can't actually get their shit together to go down and help these people themselves like they're expected to do, like the government should do. And then you have these people that rail against socialism and, oh, this is a form of socialism. Yeah, well, so is the military industrial complex. So is your police force. Okay, so is your army. All right, it's funny how you people all love those aspects of socialism, but when it actually comes to helping people, then suddenly it's a sin to actually spend money on Americans that are in dire need. They're in a situation that they basically need help because it's life and death for them, you know, and they're saying that there's still like 1,000 people unaccounted for. So under all this rubble, they're going to find more bodies. You can be sure of that. But look, as I said, you can also be sure that they're not going to get the help they're expecting. This area will never be rebuilt. They can go and rabbit on about new building codes and this and that. It's never going to happen. It's just going to be one distraction after another until after the midterms. And then the midterms are basically the line in the sand for this administration, for this regime, because once that line in the sand is crossed at the midterms, regardless of the outcome, the Trump regime are going to show their true face, and they are not even going to pretend to care about these people. So if you know family and friends that are in these areas, then I would suggest you tell them to get out and help them in any way you can with shelter until they can get on their feet, and then they can go find somewhere else to live, because this area is done for. It's never going to be rebuilt. So anyway, now that I've covered that, because I did feel that I did need to just basically do an update as I covered the hurricane approaching this area of the Gulf, and I was concerned about the nuclear power plant. There was no word on the nuclear power plant either way, whether it's safe or compromised. We just don't know. Apparently the media and the government don't feel the need to give us an update about that, but that's okay. We're not getting a lot of information about this hurricane. We won't get a lot of information about this hurricane. The problem with people donating too is that once it stops being featured in the media, people just forget about these people and think, oh, well, the media's not reporting on it anymore. It must be okay. They must be all good down there because the media don't mention them anymore. And so that's the other danger when you donate, that unless you're going to keep donating to these people for the next couple of years, then all you're doing is doing them an actual disservice. So anyway, now that I've got that out the way, I did just want to go through these cold anomalies quickly with you. I'll leave all the links underneath the video, and then you can go and look at them in more detail for yourself. But I did just want to bring your attention to these events because I think they're important. I do think that we're going to have the most brutal winter, maybe in living memory. And I do think that if that's the case and we really do have this absolutely historically brutal winter, then we're definitely going to see large-scale conflict around the world, because that is another gauge in the cycle that we're waiting for, that we had many warnings from all different prophecies and cultures and information left to us by our ancient ancestors, and major conflict was part of it. So the Norse were a little bit more detailed in when this would happen, and they say that this will happen after the Fimbulwinter, after the mighty winter. So if this is the case, and we are going to experience a very brutal winter, historically brutal winter, even more so than the anomalies that we've been seeing over the last few winters, if this actually is Fimbulwinter, then I would definitely be preparing for what comes next. But anybody watching this video now who is in an area that you are susceptible to cold, you don't want to leave your family's safety in the hands of government. So you should go and stock up now. You should go and get wood now. You should go and get supplies now. Get these things now, so that when these events happen, you're not lining up at the store behind everyone else because suddenly you realize you need supplies or you need things that you don't have to get through what's coming, because you should actually be prepared to not have electricity. They are reporting that some of the grids may not withstand some of these brutally cold ice events, especially in Canada. We know that the grids are very fragile all throughout the US and Canada as well. So don't depend on that. Make sure that you have yourself prepared for whatever comes, and if it doesn't eventuate, then at least you were prepared in case it does. But if it does eventuate and you haven't prepared because you are erring on the side of normalcy bias, which 99% of the population do, then you're going to actually fail yourself and fail your family. So personally, I don't want to be in the position where I'm failing myself and my family. I'd rather be prepared, which is why I'm giving people a heads up in case you don't watch all of these websites and these events and research them as thoroughly as I do. I'm actually using all of my researching skills of getting this information together and doing the footwork for you so that you actually know, oh, okay, there are these actual cold events happening, and it could very well mean that we're going to have a very historically brutal winter that I need to prepare myself for. So we're seeing already record low temperatures and snow blanket the west from the Great Lakes to California. We're seeing snow blanketing Pakistan, unexpected cold wave, and sub-zero temperatures. Okay. Snowiest October that Calgary has ever had, and the month has just begun. Once again, snowiest October Calgary has ever had, and the month has just begun. Sorry, that is just a repeat of that article there. Eastern North Dakota dealing with more than a foot of snow. Moisture snow has really hampered the harvest. So that's the other thing that we're seeing. The knock-on effects of all of this snow and this unseasonal weather is that it's going to impact food supplies. Okay, so expect that food's going to start getting more expensive, and some foods, some fruits and vegetables may even not be available because the harvest is just completely ruined and they can't actually harvest any of the fruit and vegetables to sell the public. So that's something else that we have to keep in mind. And this is also what the North said, that it would affect the food supplies. So something we keep in mind. Personally, I don't really care what people believe. Everyone can believe what they want. I put a lot of weight in the knowledge that was left to us by our ancient ancestors, because it wasn't just one culture, it was every single culture around the planet all saying the same thing. And so I have more faith in them telling me the truth than I do our government officials, who have constantly let us down and confirmed themselves to be corrupted regardless of what side of government they're actually on. Okay, so whether you're left or right, it really doesn't matter. Okay, they're two sides of the same coin and they're just as corrupted as each other. So if you're falling into this tribal mentality of left and right, then really you're propagandized. And I'd look in the mirror and really try and pull yourself out of that mindset, because it's not going to do you any benefit of all. The government is not there to help you regardless which side you are thinking is better than the other. They're both the same. Okay, they just basically have a different narrative that gives you the illusion of separation, but really at the end of the day they're still going to screw you over. Regardless of the team colour your new master wears, you're still going to be screwed over in the end. You're nothing but a worthless eater to them. That's all they view you as, and that's all they'll ever view you as. Okay, and as I said, the midterms are a line in the sand with the Trump regime. The honeymoon is over and they are going to reveal themselves for who they really are. So expect next year to be a very horrific year when it comes to the political arena. And if this winter is as brutal as it looks like it's going to be, and we are indeed going to experience the Fimbulwinter, then you can absolutely guarantee that next year we are going to see massive conflict on a global scale, and it is going to be very violent and very bloody. Now, I know people don't like to hear this type of information, and I know people are going to basically say negative things towards me and call me a fearmonger and not like the information, so they react emotionally. And as I just said before, I really don't care if people believe me or not. This information isn't supposed to emotionally trigger you in a negative way. It's supposed to empower you, because when you understand what's approaching, then you can actually work to strengthen yourself and ready yourself for what comes, because what's approaching is going to be so dark that you really have no hope of making it through what's approaching us unless you do actually strengthen yourself mentally, physically, and most importantly, spiritually. So I'm sorry if this information isn't what you want to hear. It's information that I have to relay because, as I said, I've studied the ancient knowledge for long enough to know that all of this knowledge confirms itself time and time again. Over the last 7.5 years, I have studied full time all of these mythologies, all of these prophecies, all of the scriptures and text and symbolism, and it has all continued to confirm itself and show us that we live in a cycle. I've got a playlist here regarding that, and that we're at the end of this cycle, and that's why we're seeing such upheaval on all these different levels, mentally, spiritually, and physically, and we will continue to see that as we move towards the tipping point. So if you're interested in looking at my research, if you're just finding my channel for the first time and you're just seeing this video for the first time, don't judge what I've said just by this video alone. Go and actually look at why I'm saying what I'm saying. And it's because I've actually invested 7.5 years into researching everything about what the ancient ancestors told us and warned us about. And so I didn't just look at the Christian mythology, or I didn't just look at the Hindu mythology, or I didn't just look at the Norse mythology, or the Greek mythology, or the ancient Egyptian mythology. I looked at it all because I understand it's all fragments of the same thing. And so what I've done is brought all the fragments together so we have an understanding for the full picture. Now, I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm sure there's lots that I've missed out on, and there's more that I can find, but I'm saying what I have put together so far shows me that we need to ready ourselves for what's approaching. And these cold anomalies that we're already seeing as we're moving into autumn is giving me cause for concern that we may be about to experience a historically brutal winter in the Northern Hemisphere. Well, I will leave all of the links below the video. I am still updating my Google Plus page every day, so if you want to join my Google Plus page, you will see that I am updating every day with the latest earth changes and political events. I will do this until G Plus is closed down, and then I will do a weekly update on another channel that I have created called Shift of the Ages, and I will begin to update videos more regularly about all of the changes that we are experiencing. But until then, you can find me on G Plus and you can follow me there daily. Well, I hope everyone is well, and I'll leave it here for now. And as always, peace out.